this was the final part of last week's class, that isn't the Torah called Chochmasei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaChachma, who says it's the essence of Hashem? It's Hashem's wisdom. It's Hashem's wisdom, and by man, wisdom is not the person. We're gifted with wisdom, so that itself says that wisdom is not our etzem, is not our essence. But we know that might be by man the case. But when it comes to Hashem, like the Rambam says, Hu Amada, Hu Yodea, Hashem is the wisdom, Hashem is the knower, the wisdom and this which is known, it's all one by Hashem, which ultimately tells us when we study Torah, we're not only connecting, embracing Hashem, but in other words, Eivarim, we're not only connecting Hashem's Eivarim, His limbs, but this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chvadav Atzma, which you find yourself in the Torah. That's where we left off. So, now, Umiyachar, now we know what happens, what transpires when a Yid learns Torah. So, Miyachar Sheratzon Ha'elyin, being that the supreme wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amiyuchad Bein Sof Baruch Hu, which is one with the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tachas HaYichud, with the ultimate unity, Hu Bigilu Legamri, is totally manifest with a Jew, with a Yid, with a person who learns Torah. V'lei behester parim klal uklal, it is totally not hidden. It is not concealed benefshalikis in the godly soul, olavusha pnimim, and its inner garments. If you remember, what is the inner garments of the nefshalikis? Yesh ha lavusha chitzoni and the lavushim hapnimim. Lavusha chitzoni is more related to the evarim, to the limbs, which is to mitzvahs, which is the maaseh. Maaseh the lavushim levush hachitzon shel nefesh. We spoke about it in length. There's a nefesh, and the nefesh has three garments, which is namely elaborated on in the 4th chapter, which anybody's more welcome to see in the previous classes on Kosher Tube or with the text on TanyaOnline.com. In the beginning of chapter 4, he deals with the garments of the neshama. So the garments themselves are divided and compartmentalized. There are the levush hachitzon, which is action, and that is associated, and that connects to Hashem's Eivarim, the limbs, namely the mitzvahs. The levushim hapnimiyim, the inner garments, that is the Torah, that is rather the machshava, thought and speech, which, as we know it, as we all know when we learn Torah, what garments of the nefesh are function is the inner garments. Our thoughts capture the message of the Torah we learn, and our speech utter the words of Torah we learn. We know that part of learning Torah, the mitzvah of learning Torah, is vidibartobam, that we utilize, not only understand the concept of Torah, we speak Torah. It says Chaim Heim, the Gemara says L'moitziyeim bepeh. True living Torah is when you verbalize the words of Torah. So when we learn Torah, what part of the godly soul is engaged in learning Torah? The levushim hapnimiyim, the inner garments. Shehemi right away says machshavta b'dibura, which is the thought of the nefesh, and the speech of nefesh. That moment, when a person occupies himself in the words of Torah, the garments, the soul itself, and these garments are one with the infinite, the infinity of Hashem, blessed be He, in that moment, b'tachas hayichud, in the time when he learns Torah, with the ultimate unity. Like the oneness of Hashem's speech and Hashem's thought in the essence of Hashem. Now, Dr. Rebbe is right away here alluding to what he mentioned in the previous chapter in 20 and 21, which not everybody was here when we learned it, I'm noticing. So we're going to recap over here. We're going to recap this to find it and to point out how it falls into this context as well. What's happening over here is what is the Alter Rebbe telling us? That when you learn Torah, you connect to the core essence of Hashem. And not only, again, even more than mitzvahs, as we learned, and again, we recap over here today, and namely elaborated in the last week, that learning Torah touches or connects the Yid, the Jew, with the core essence of Hashem. And what connects with the core essence of Hashem? this which is engaged in learning Torah, starting from the levushim hapnimim, which is thought, which is again learning Torah must be with thought. Learning Torah is not just like reciting or saying psalms, or for example, we know that we could fulfill the mitzvah of connecting to Tehillim by reading it, even when we don't understand it. When we learn Torah, it's important, and not only it's important, it's an integral part of the mitzvah that we capture what we're learning. You open a Gemara and you read from the beginning to the end, or a page in Tanya, you read from the beginning to the end, you don't understand what you're saying, you're not learning Torah. There's a few exceptions. Torah should be ksav. That's why I don't want to go off the topic, but when a person gets an aliyah and he doesn't know what he's really reading, not if he doesn't understand what he's saying, he could still make the bracha, right? Because that's an exception. When it comes to Torah should be ksav, the written Torah, the oral Torah, Torah Shabbat, you open up any part of Torah and you just read, and you don't know what you're saying, you don't begin to mekayim the mitzvah of limud Torah. Limud Torah is to be memachshavto, means that you have to have a sichlo, memachshavto, with your intellect, but namely your thought, which is the garment of your intellect, to capture the words of Torah. That's the way you're mekayim the mitzvah of learning Torah. Additionally, which tells us this is the investment. It's the investment of our thought. Additionally, we invest our speech in learning Torah. Like we say, that's part of the way a Jew learns Torah, that he verbalizes. You see, you go into yeshiva, you see the real learning Torah. It's not like a library where it's quiet, everybody's just sitting and thinking of the words that say. You go into yeshiva, you hear, oh, Rabbi says, and Marava, and the questions and the answers, and Kasha, and Minhu, and all those, and you see that people are learning with a Yiddish would be a koch, which means with passion, and they're saying, and they're repeating, and they're, in other words, you see their involvement not only capturing the words with the learning, but also uttering the words, because this is part of Limdat Torah, to also invest the dibur, the speech, in the words of Torah. So this is the complete package of Torah. So here we're dealing with a Jew with a Yid who's learning Torah. What's happening at the time? He's connected to the core essence of Hashem. So in his experience right now, where he's connected to, there is nothing else other than God. Because the famous a place where the thought of man is, that's where he is. In this case, it's not only where you think, you're thinking about a particular place, and that's why it just captures your mind. That's the truth of what's the truth of the experience of the Yid who's learning Torah, is that he's in the emes. He is within the emes, the truth of God, which means the infinity of God, the way God transcends any inferior expression of himself, of his own self, which means like this. And again, in the connection to the previous chapters, what Rebbe is alluding to over here, we mentioned in the past, Hashem created the world, ba'asara mamarot nivra ha'olam. Hashem expressed himself in creation with speech. Additional, it says ki beko Hashem tzura lamim. There's a pasuk which says Hashem ki beko Hashem tzura lamim, that Hashem created the world beko. So the Medrash says, the Razal tells us, the Gemara tells us that beko Hashem tzura lamim biyud nivra olam haba behei nivra olam hazeh. All the worlds were created from Hashem's speech. 2 words. The whole olam haba was created by yud, and behei nivra olam hazeh. And that is the meaning, Beko Hashem Tzur Elamim. There are Yud Kei Tzur who bara Tzur Meloshin Yotzer. Tzur Elamim. He created the world. A little more like in a more subdivision. This is one energy of one letter, but eventually sub means the meaning. Say it divides itself to the Asara Mamarot, the 10 sayings. That's like it says in the Mishnah. Hashem created the world of 10 sayings. You look in Parshas Bereshit, Vayomer Elikim Yihi Or, Vayomer Elikim Yihi Rakia. These are all the 10 sayings Hashem invested in creation.
So why Yud and why Hey?
What?
Why Dafka Yud and Hey?
Good question. Good point. So it does say, and you could find it in I believe in chapter 5 in Geras HaKodesh. It's not online yet because we didn't get it. None of Geras HaKodesh of the Alter Rebbe. I believe it's chapter 5 if I'm not mistaken. I'll just take a look at this time, and he explains why the Yud in Olam Haba, and why the Hey in Olam Haba. Now again I say chapter 5, it is chapter 5, and he gives HaKadosh. It's a different part of Tanya. It's all the Kutei Amarim. I mean, Kutei Amarim, we obviously finished chapter 5, we're holding 23, but the Tanya itself is divided into 5 parts. Igeres HaKadosh is the 4th. In Igeres HaKadosh, the 5th chapter, which you can generally find it online, and that in the text, that is, namely, which explains this. Why the Yud and the Hey? Good question, but I'll just say it very brief. Between the Yud and the Hey, which one is a more important letter? I don't want to use the word important, or which one brings out more deeper energy, the Yud or the Hey? One is going to say, well, if you look at the external appearance of the Yud and the Hey is bigger than the Yud.
Yeah.
The bigger doesn't mean deeper. Usually it's just the opposite. Yud carries more energy. It's the smallest letter in the alphabet, and the reason why it's the smallest letter because it's a demonstration, or it corresponds to a deeper level within godliness. That's why it is small. Like you say, like Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, Anav Adam Mikol Adam Shel Pnei Adama, but he was the greatest. His greatness was because he was submissive to something greater. He stood in submission to God. That's what made him great. So haya anav me'od, like he said, menachnu ma. What are we? Moshe Rabbeinu. Remember the pasuk said, who are we? Moshe Rabbeinu was completely batel legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Moshe is not. That's why he's the greatest person, because he constantly stands in submission to something greater. So you look at the chitzoniyut of the ot. Hey is bigger than the Yud, and the Yud is the smallest in the alphabet, but it says the opposite. Because it's the smallest, because it represents, it's submissive to something deeper and higher. As opposed to the Hey, ha'ot kvar yoter gadol, pirush ha'mitziyut, it stands with less bitul l'mash. That's why externally it stands in bigger, literally physically bigger appearance. So that's why it says Olam Haba is more of a qualitative world, where the eichut yoter is more expressed more than the kamut. Olam Haba is about olam eichuti, the eichut. That's why biyud nivra olam haba. Yud is less the kamut of the ot. Yoter, it's a letter which is more a letter which is more a qualitative, energetic letter. In other words, the energy in the Yud is more a quality type of energy. Therefore, the Yud stands small in externally is a small letter. There's this biyud nivra olam haba. Hey, which is more the chitzoniyut of the Yud, which means it in its appearance, it's physically bigger. It's a bigger letter, which carries less of the pnimiyut of the godly energy. Therefore, it creates, or it's associated with a creation which is a world which is less on a qualitatively less in a higher level than Olam Haba. That's why biyud nivra Olam Haba, behei nivra Olam Hazeh. I'm just giving it in a nutshell to understand. Do you understand what I'm saying over here?
Yeah.
I mean, something smaller, the Yud, it says, is the greatest letter of the whole from a certain many times it says Aleph, but Yud, from a perspective, is the greatest letter of the Aleph base. Even that's the smallest, because small, nikuda, even nikuda, miramez on something much. It says, for example, dai lichkima birimiza. For example, certain people that you have to explain them every small detail. A chacham atar miramez lamashu, just hint a chacham something, he picks up the whole message, because in the remiza there's such potent energy in that remez that chacham tofes it right away. Which means the smaller or the more minuscule the expression, it carries much more of the much more potent energy.
Pinchas, when he prayed to Hashem, he got from Hashem the letter Yud. Pinchas.
He got the letter Yud after the story with him, really?
After he prayed to Hashem, so God gave him the
also,
Yud.
if I mean, it exists also. Yeshua, for example, got the letter Yud from that's right. I mean, the letter Yud is of extremely, if you look in the Zohar and Kabbalah, it has extremely, but again, all this, everything what I'm saying, because it's smaller in image, but the small in image shows how the enormous energy that it carries. It's all about the energy, not so much the miftah chitzoni or hamareh chitzoni. Hey is already, yoter, it's more elaborative, which means it carries less like the difference of chachma bina. Bina is much more, it expounds on the nekuda of the chachma. But the nekuda of chachma, like explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus, has a certain potency, a certain energy, which is way beyond the expansion of bina. Chachma, all the energy is the nekuda of chachma. And Yud represents chachma, while Hey represents bina. So it says, therefore, Biyud Nivra Olam Haba, Hey Nivra Olam Hazeh. But again, you could look in Yigeres HaKodesh, chapter 5, it deals with this saying over here. But getting back to what we're saying over here, the speech by man is is an inferior expression, and when you deal with one letter of one man's speech in comparison to his whole etzem, zekimat nechshav leklum. It's totally insignificant. And I will just say, like I say, we spent quite a few classes explaining this chapter 20 and 21, which demonstrates so clearly this point. So we're going to say it very brief, and I invite everybody to go look again. It's on the line with a text, tanyaonline.com, with a text, chapter 20 and 21. You can see what Alter Rebbe is alluding over here to, more barichut in length, but he's saying this over here because this is very important to us to know what level the person is connected to in his experience of learning Torah. Because when you look at let's start from a different angle just to try to find it in this context. HaKadosh Baruch Hu expressed himself with two ways. One way in Asara Marot, which created the Olamot. The other one, it's Aseret HaDibrot. L'chura, they seem the same. Zeh nikra Ma'amarot, Zeh nikra Dibrot. Apparently, Ma'amarot is sayings, Dibrot you can say is also sayings, speaking sayings and so on. But it says it's two different worlds. Ma'amarot is the most inferior expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, while the Dibur, Aseret HaDibrot, you remember how the Aseret HaDibrot begin? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Aseret HaDibrot is about the expression of the Anochiyut of Hashem, the most deepest core parts of Hashem, which this is the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, which we're dealing over here with, while the Ma'amarot express the most inferior part of Hashem. Kima Ma'amar, a person says. So Hashem, with his saying, Hashem obviously just didn't, Hashem said, and the world created. But the world is the most external layer of Hashem's expression and Hashem's pi'ula, in other words, of Hashem's doings and Hashem's accomplishment or Hashem's expression. The world and the energy which vitalizes the world is the most inferior part of Hashem. If you think about a person's speech, as the Alter Rebbe explained, take one word, legabe kol koach nafsho hamedaberet, how much a person could speak. How many letters do you think you said today? An average person speaks thousands of letters in one day. Take one letter and put it in the face of thousands of letters. It's insignificant. Take one leaf of a tree, explain that, and put it in front of the whole tree. It loses, the more the leaves in the face of that one leaf, it loses its significance. Take that one leaf and put it in front of 100 trees. It loses more its significance. Take that one leaf and put it in the face of all the leaves in the world. It's mamish kimat nechshav leklum. For example, there's a famous expression, Alter Rebbe expresses this, and it doesn't say in Tanya, but in Torah, take one drop of the Mediterranean, one drop of water, in comparison to all the water of the Mediterranean. We can't even have the right words to define the insignificance of one drop in comparison to all the waters of the Mediterranean. Right? Similarly, Hashem said a word. And the world was created. So even by man, which a person lives a certain amount of time, obviously till Mashiach comes and Tchiyat HaMitim, but Bechlalut, everything about man is limited. Even by man we could understand the insignificance of one letter in comparison to the entire power of speech of man. He could speak infinite amount of words. If he lived forever, it would be really infinite amount of words. But take a matter from the beginning of our life, how many millions, and maybe millions is not probably much more, billions of letters we spoke, each one of us in this room. How many letters we all, Take one dibur legabi zeh. Like, it's not yet like a drop of water in the face of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean obviously is much, but it's tiny. So what's the significance of this, of the world that Hashem created? If He created with one ma'amar, with one scheme, with one letter. So if by man one letter is nechshav leklum, by Kadosh Baruch Hu it's yoter nechshav leklum. So what's the significance of the world? Nothing, because one letter, which is the energy of the world, right? It is the energy of the world. In comparison to all the letters which Hashem ever spoke, what Hashem can speak, and then you're going to say, still, because it's the same. Just repeating again what we learned, that it's in the end of the day, could you say 1 teaspoon of the Mediterranean is mamash nechshav leklum klum klum? No, you can't say that, because what is the quality of the Mediterranean? It's all water in the end. It's all these teaspoons. So you could say it's very small, but you can't say it's mamash insignificant completely, because it's a quantitative difference. It's not a qualitative difference. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe goes even deeper within the nefesh. One dibur legabe kol otiyot lad shel dibur, not like all the letters of speech, but all the letters of machshava. Shama, letters of thought, are qualitatively different than letters of speech. So take one dibur of what?
We call letters of thought. I mean, the thought.
Thoughts. We think in languages. We think in a certain language.
Yeah.
Well, we think in concrete terms, but when we also think in images often.
True, but still.
That's why you can, in one moment of thought, it might take you 10 minutes to explain.
10 minutes more, many times more.
So
and that's because the otiyot are much more refined. There is letters. In other words, we think in languages. We think in. I mean, obviously, we could find images and the other different dimensions of our thought, but there is otiyot hamachshava and otiyot dibur. But what you're saying is contributing to this notion over here, which we're trying to explain. What you can think in a minute, it could take you an hour to express, because there's such a much more refined type of otiyot. So take this ota dibur. Let's use this ota dibur. Not only legabe klalut kloach nafshem daberet, that in the end of the day it's dibur. So it's more of a quantitative difference, but take this ota dibur legabi otiyot machshava. It loses more its significance. And then go deeper within the nefesh. There's certain levels, places within the nefesh, that otiyot bichlal don't exist. In the lev, in the heart, for example, there's no otiyot. Intellect also doesn't have otiyot. Machshava ken, seichel doesn't have otiyot. So take this ot and place it deeper within the soul, in the face of areas where otiyot don't exist bichlal. So, right? Not only legabi otiyot hadibur, not only legabi otiyot hamachshava, that it's a different type of letter, but still it's a letter. Take that ot hadibur legabi the darga of a place in the nefesh which otiyot don't even exist. Then the ot really loses its entity completely in the face of the nefesh. So what the Alter Rebbe was saying in the previous chapter, that Hashem created the world with a dibur, with ot. In the end, the olam which Hashem created with one ot is batel umvutal legabe, the core essence of Hashem. It's kind of non-existent entity, because it goes on even more, but let's try to again see it the way it fits in over here. There's the core essence of Hashem, and the energy which Hashem created the world is so minute. It's not even minute. It's kilo chashiv mamash. It's like it's not there in the face of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Because just like by man, in order for me to draw a letter, is that I have to remove my whole self in order to express myself with a particular word. What means remove my whole self? Because when you think about one word in comparison to the soul of man, it doesn't have any significance, because in areas of my soul there is no otiyot bichlal. So what is one ot by man in comparison to Gabi klaluta nefesh shelo? It's nothing. How much more so when you're dealing with God? Because Hashem created the world with mamar, with one letter. this letter, which includes the whole world, which was created, which is the energy. In other words, which this letter is its energy, because the world doesn't have any other energy, other than the energy which is in this Yud or the K, let's say Olam Hazeh, which is the K, or the Asar Mamarot, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. To take this world in comparison to the deeper parts of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's Kiloch Hashiv Mamash. It's completely insignificant, because the Eibush is Ein Sof, and Hashem is Ein Sof, and Hashem is Bli Gvul. Lelo Hagbalot Klal Uklal, Bilti Bal Gvul. And then this Ein Sof, eventually, I don't even know how, if you think about it, we don't even understand how Hashem did it, from Achdut HaPashut, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite oneness, to ultimately come down and create a world with one Ot. The only way Hashem did it is through many Tzimtzumim, right? The only, what?
God left here residue.
The what?
Residue.
Which is usually, what?
Residue, like
Residue.
Which matter, but it comes through many tzimtzumim. Okay, so maybe that's what you're getting. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzamtzem et atzmo, tzimtzum acharei tzimtzum, until he could, in the end...
He left residue.
Okay.
The residue of Hashem.
Okay, but in the end, that's the only way HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates from Achdut HaPashut, that he creates something which is associated with Hagbala, and not some Hagbala which is so minutiae, so small and so tiny, like one ought to extract from the infinite light of Hashem. Now, when a person is involved in Yanei Ha'olam without the involvement of Torah, so what is he involved with? In other words, when a person, the difference of a person learning Torah and a person not learning Torah is involved in something which doesn't have the value of Torah, or is not associated with the Torah energy in no form or fashion. He's just involved in Yanei Ha'olam. It's not a matter of something which is a little greater, a little holier. When a person stops from his regular worldly affairs and routine and opens up a sefer, he's jumping from the smallest insignificant detail, and he's jumping into the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Kimoshu Hu, the way Hashem is. And as we said before, there's Asara Mamarot and Asara Dibrot, which seem to be very similar, right? You're sitting in the same room in Olam Hazeh. So what? You have here a Mishnayot in front of you, a Sefer Halachot in front of you, a Sefer Tanya in front of you. And it seems the same, similar to one's going to say Asara Mamarot, Asara Dibrot. Seem the same? No. Asara Dibrot is associated with Anochi Hashem Alikecha. This is the core essence of God. So the core essence of God is the infinite God, God's soul. Like we said over here, it's Hu HaYodeh Wamada. It's all about Hashem's soul, which is infinite. So when you're learning Torah here, this is where the Alter Rebbe, it comes over here in this chapter, and describes the experience of learning Torah and where the person attaches himself to. He attaches himself to the infinite of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that from the perspective of the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nothing exists, to the extent that everything else out of that infinite experience is kilach hashiv, is insignificant. So when you're not learning Torah and you're involved in Yanei Ha'olam, where are you involved? You're involved in that little ot.
What's an ot?
Ot, letter.
Okay.
One little, most external expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, litzamtzem et atzmot tzimtzum acharei tzimtzum en ketz tzimtzumim, infinite amount of contractions and concealments in order to express himself with that ot which he created the world. So even if you're excited about the world in a very kosher way, Marabu Masech Hashem, the beautiful, the Grand Canyon and the fruits and the trees and the appearance and the sights and so on, in the end, your investment is in the most minute detail of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to contract and conceal himself, tzimtzum acharei tzimtzum, with infinite amount of tzimtzumim, to create this world, which, because in the end of the day, this world, the energy of this world is one letter. And when you open a Mishnayos, you open a Malacha, you're jumping from a state of the most external part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is one dibur, to the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where this dibur doesn't even exist. Like we said before, what is one ot in comparison to the nefesh? Completely nothing. It's much more of the bitul, of the nothingness of one drop of water in comparison to the Mediterranean. because that's just a quantitative difference, while one dibur in comparison to the entire nefesh of the person, where otiyot don't even exist, it's completely nothing. When you're dealing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you open up a Mishnayos or any part of Torah, you learn Torah, you're completely connecting to a level which is the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with nothing else exists. So when you're learning, in your experience, you're in an area where truly nothing else exists other than Hashem Echad, other than the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That if you think about it from that perspective, the world doesn't even exist, because the whole world comes from an Ot Echad. So when you're not learning Torah, so you're already just involved in that Ot, you cannot say you're in a place where it doesn't where it doesn't exist, because you're dealing with it, and in a sense you're rachok, you're distant from the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because your investment is only in world affairs, and even in a kosher way. Because as long as it's not associated with Avodat Hashem, the service of God, you're dealing with something completely inferior. Because you're dealing something which was created just with Ot Echad Mishmi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you're very nifrad, you're separated from the core essence and the infinity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not in a bad way. He does something, so then he's not only dealing with something inferior, he's dealing something which is impure, which is truly, essentially rachok from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're not dealing with Aveira. We're dealing with someone's involvement in a worldly matter, or some involvement in learning Torah, doing a mitzvah. But let's say the farthest extreme, or the closest in his oneness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we just said we established as learning Torah. And so when a person doesn't learn Torah, he's involved in this one ot, which is rachok me'od from the etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's nifrad mi HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kaviyach. And Masheke, when he learns Torah, he's entering into experience which is solely HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That from that perspective, nothing exists. Nothing exists. Even the olam which he is in also doesn't exist. I'll say even more, because sometimes the Gemara even says interestingly that somebody about tzaddikim, it says nothing could harm the tzaddik. The famous stories that tzaddikim, Daniel, he went begova arayot in the den of hungry lions, and he wasn't consumed. Why is that? Because hungry lions consume people from the perspective of olam, in the rules, in the perspective of olam. That's why Hashem created the world. From the perspective of this ot, that's where all these things happen. But l'gabei, the core of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which this doesn't even exist. Not only the rules doesn't change. It doesn't even exist. Olam doesn't exist when you're dealing with the Ein Sof Baruch Hu of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Daniel and these tzaddikim which lived the world together with his Ein Sof, so when they came into the Gemara, it wasn't even an issue. All the rules didn't apply, because this is God, and this is these rules apply in a world which is kaviyachol nifrad me'HaKadosh. But again, I say nifrad. Right. Okay, not nifrad in a way. Have a good night. Okay. Thank you again. But not nifrad in a way that chas v'shalom, in a non-kosher way, which is a separate idea of pirud, which we dealt with in the previous chapters. We're dealing with this is like in this world. Take for example, someone playing in the sand in comparison to someone, a big professor in giving a lecture for 2,000 students, and a little child playing in the sand. It's like two different worlds. They could be in the same, here's the park and here's the room of the lecture. It could be in the same area, but this is two different worlds, even though it seems that they're in the same, demographically they're in the same area. So Daniel goes into the Guva Arayot, and he's not consumed by the hungry lions, because these rules exist where the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world. But the Gabein states of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the world doesn't even exist. It's not in the rules don't exist. The world doesn't exist. Nothing exists because you're consumed into the Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Daniel lived a whole life like that. And we find many tzaddikim. The story we just said, the story of the Arizal. I think it was the story of the Arizal. Or no, it wasn't Arizal. Chaim, I think HaKadosh. He was stuck he stuck for Shabbat. A lion came and in the end the lion stood with him the whole Shabbos, and after the lion indicated to the Chaim to hop on its back, and it took him all the way back to the caravan. We're just reading the story to my kids, because because you're dealing with a different world. You're dealing, and obviously these are people who their entire life are invested in this world of Ein Sof, which is the Ein Arieh, then this little ot. This is the Ein Sof b'chvado v'atzmo, and this is after Hashem concealed Himself, tzimtzumim acharei tzimtzumim, to create a little to express it with one word, which created a whole olam with its rules, with its complexity, which even today, with everything we know about this world, is just not even a tip of the iceberg. With all its, in other words, and it is a complex world. And it's a great world and a complex world, great in the context of, in other words, there is so much to this olam hazeh, but yet as much as we're going to find is significance in olam hazeh, it's in the end of the day, it's one little ot. It's an expression of one of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it has its rules and has its regulations. But when you open up a halacha, or any part of Torah, you learn Torah, you're entering into an experience that the Eibush Hashem, together you connect yourself with Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Anochi Hashem Lekecha, which is Ein Sof, which is truly infinite, which is the way the Eibush stands for Himself, by Himself, before He would mitzamtzim Himself with Tzimtzumim Adin Ketz to express Himself, to create a world. So you can understand the distance. There's no erech b'chlal. So you enter into this world which olam doesn't even exist. It's all about God and godliness. So I'm just going to, before we conclude, if we could just read a few words to get davar shalem, to get something complete and to see all this, how it fits into these words over here. So we'll leave the audience over here with something a little more, this and the web audience as well, with something a little more complete. He says, well, we'll start again from the wording of who begili legamri. It stands in complete revelation, manifestation within the Jew is learning Torah, within the person who's learning Torah. V'lo behester panim klal uklal. There's no concealment when he doesn't learn Torah. So then he's part of the one ot, which by definition the whole ot is one big helen behester of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's one big concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The whole phenomenon of Olam, by definition, is a concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By the way, that's one of the reasons why it's called Olam. Olam milashon he'elem behester. Have you ever thought about it? Olam, right? To us, we know Olam is a world. But what word do we find in Olam? He'elem, which means the whole mitziyut of Olam is one big concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know, sometimes a person thinks the famous Mekubal, he said that Leizeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not great. This is not the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He's called a boreh, a creator. When we think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of the greatest terms we think we give HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a boreh, He's a creator. But if you think about it, it's the most inferior, lowest expression to define, or lowest. It's so not complimentary. In other words, it's such an inferior expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be a boreh. Because what did He create? He created an olam. The whole olam, by definition, is olam milashon he'elem behester. They had to conceal His oro habilti bal gvul, tzimtzumim acharei tzimtzumim, to express Himself in one letter, which finally created an olam. So the olam, that's why olam itself, by definition, is milashon he'elem behester. It's a concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when I learn Torah, I'm connecting myself to the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why it says, so therefore he says, when I'm learning Torah, the experience is God in full expression, God in full manifestation, v'lo behester panim klal uklal. In my experience, not necessarily in someone else we could be sitting next to, which is not learning Torah. And well, the point is, by the way, that everybody should get involved, and that's the point. The bigger picture is that the whole world should one day feel its consumption into this Ein Sof. That's the purpose of why Hashem created the world, and that He wanted that we should take a world which, by definition, is nifrad me'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it should be nichlal, absorbed in Hashem Echad, in the oneness of Hashem. I should learn Torah, you should learn Torah, this person should do a mitzvah. The whole world should get involved in the knowledge of God and become more of a godly world. What happens? It's not just a little more refined world, a little more a sweeter world, a more gentle world. It's much greater than that. That the world is consumed into the infinite light of Hashem. So, but right now we're talking about the person who's learning Torah. So when the person is learning Torah, in his experience, when you're opening the Shulchan Aruch or Mishnayot or any part of Torah, in your experience, you're connecting yourself to the Anechi, to the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is revealed by you. And that is manifest by you. V'lo behester panim uklal uklal, benefesh olikit ulevosha pnimim, which machshavata v'dibura ba'ota sha'a, in the moment you're learning Shadam Masek v'dibrei Torah. Because in the time when you're learning Torah, harigama nefesh ulevosha elu miyuchodim mamash bein tzal baruch hu ba'ota sha'a. Not only your garment, but also your entire soul. I'll just mention quickly what he's saying over here. We just said that the garment, halavushim apnimim, are involved in learning Torah. What about my nefesh batzmo? So you think about any garment. When I pull my jacket over here, for example, I'm taking my jacket and I pull it. Hayad halech, together with the jacket. Im halavushim shali, if my garments are learning Torah, so the nefesh, which is in the garment, is also pulled into this experience of Ein Sof. In other words, the consumption into the Ein Sof experience which takes my whole being, not only my levushim, but my soul is also part of this Ein Sof experience. That's what he says. HaNefesh u'levusha elu miyuchad mamash bein tzal baruch hu b'ota sha'a b'tachlit ha'yichud, with the ultimate unity ki yichud diburo machshavto shel Kadosh Baruch Hu memuhutan v'atzmuta v'atzmuto kinal. Like we said before, this one speech, the way in the face of the infinite of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what's transpiring right now. I'm sitting in the world which is really related to this one and it's completely consuming my experience of learning Torah. I'm completely removing myself from this concealment, this hell of Hester, into an experience of complete Gilui of Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Because from the perspective of Hashem, Ein Shum Davar Nifrad Ki Im Behester Panim Kinal. Because in the face of Hashem, nothing is separated. It's only from the perspective of Olam, from the perspective where there's a Hester Panim, a concealment of the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's where there's Pirud. So when I leave again that Olam Elashon Helen Behester and I get involved in learning Torah, it's all about revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's all about Hashem's, the core essence of Hashem stands in full state of manifestation in my experience. Have a wonderful day.